Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Linda and I on the Divorce Magazine YouTube channel. The Divorce Magazine is an online magazine that offers all kinds of advice, legal advice, advice about coping with divorce that comes from psychologists, divorce coaches, and so on and so forth. A lot of our articles, the majority of them are all authored by divorce professionals. So you can go there and you can trust the people who are writing it, but always seek legal advice whenever necessary. We would suggest that. Today we have Linda. Now, if you haven't been on the Divorce Magazine website and you haven't met Linda Simpson, please go on it, because this is one of the wisest people we have met on the Divorce Magazine when it comes to giving advice about coping and dealing with divorce, both from the adult perspective and also looking after your children. So do go on the Divorce Magazine and read some of what Linda has contributed to the divorcemagazine.co.uk. My name is Soila, I'm the founding editor, and today I'll let Linda tell us what it is that we will be speaking about. But before that, Linda, just to jog people's memories about who you are and how what it is that you do.
Okay, well, thank you for those kind words, Soila. I do appreciate it. I spent a decade, 10 years in what's called SEL, social emotional learning, as a facilitator in the educational system. People might be more familiar with the word guidance, although that's taken on more of an academic term in recent years. Mm-hmm. But social emotional learning is exactly that. It's I would facilitate workshops for teachers and for students about the important things. I used to tell my students, this is more important than any kind of academic course you'll take, because these are the skills you're going to use through life. So it's learning about kindness and empathy and respect and self-responsibility. And I would facilitate whole school programs and also student teachers, faculties of education. And they always came away. I had one story I've told after a workshop that I did with some student teachers at a faculty of education. One young man looked at me and he said, "You do marriage counseling?" And so he said, "I wish my wife had been at this workshop." So that was very gratifying. But the more we know about emotional learning, the better we cope with life. Yeah. I firmly believe, yes.
And that's really great to hear you talk about that, because actually what we're going to be discussing today is about emotional abuse. And yes. And how, what role it plays, what it looks like. Because I think that's probably physical abuse is obvious in a way.
Mm-hmm. Black eye.
Yeah, exactly. Sexual abuse is obvious in some, it's much more obvious than emotional. I think with emotional abuse, you're left questioning, is it not? Am I in an emotionally abusive relationship? Because there aren't outward signs. There aren't.
Well, and that's we had talked about this earlier a week or so ago. The word that came to mind that really resonated was starvation, because what happens in emotional...
Was what, sorry, Linda? I think I cleared my throat just when you said that word. What word came to mind?
The starvation.
Yes.
Because what happens with emotional abuse is that you get emotionally starved over time, and you don't realize it's happening. And I have very personal experience with this, so I know. Even when it was first beginning, I didn't know the signs. I didn't realize. I can look back in retrospect, but for people that feel that they might be in that situation, you're it starts insidiously with this withdrawal of affection. Even a hug feels foreign. That when you hug your partner, and the warmth isn't there, and it starts to escalate after that. Then they start with criticisms. Things that you used to do correctly are now not so much. Yeah. And it's very, very difficult because it happens gradually, and you get to a point where you doubt yourself, because there must be something wrong with me. Yeah. if I'm feeling this way.
I'm just imagining if I were in that situation, I probably would question myself.
Oh, yes.
And then not really say it to people, because I don't want to look like I'm being fussy, I'm being crazy, I'm being difficult. But can you give us an example of one of your examples, if it's okay with you?
Oh, sure.
What it looked like.
You are absolutely right about that. You describe doubting yourself, because you do. Something's wrong with me, that they're not being affectionate to me anymore. What did I do? Mm. And then they start, as I said, with the criticisms, and there's always that subtext running through your relationship, that something's wrong with me because they're withdrawing. I didn't do this right. And then, in many instances, as one friend said, they attack your vulnerabilities, right? You're looking old, or you're looking fat now. And that's, this is your primary partner. It must be true if that's what they're saying about you.
Yeah. And so are there any, you probably have mentioned them as we were speaking, but if somebody came to you who was in a situation where there was emotional abuse, are there any signs? Are there any indications that actually, yes, you've mentioned some, with the criticism, with the lack of affection in terms of, hugging and being there, and, some subtext that are, sent to you via other words.
Yeah.
Is there something else that we need to be able to, that would be an obvious sign of emotional abuse that you can think of?
Oh, I wish I could say that.
Yeah.
In my situation, it was an older friend who identified it, that had been in the same situation. I didn't know. My family said to me, there's something wrong with Linda. Like, what? And you shrink. I visioned myself as this little box, and I had to protect that. And it was, you don't have the energy to try to defend yourself to your partner, because your self-esteem has been eroded for months, maybe years. And I would say, based on what I saw in myself, if you see a friend with that kind of sadness, because it's real sadness, in the in a marriage or a partnership or whatever, ask them. That's as difficult as it is. If my friend hadn't said to me, this is what I think, and you need to get to a counselor, I don't know where I would have been. I was in counseling for 2.5 years as a result. And best 2.5 years,
Good to hear. Well, I'm just thinking with an emotional abuser, because it can be both male and female. It's not just the husband who does this or the man who does that. I'm trying to imagine what they would be like in public. Is it a private thing that they would do? In public, would they be affectionate? Would they be paying attention and then withdraw it when you get into your private space? Do they want to show, look at how wonderful I am, and then when you get into your own home, it's...
That's a very good question, because one of the indicators, and I only found out after the fact, was the undermining of me in public. Something's wrong with Linda. Something, she's not who, and this was said to a friend, she's not who you think she is. And there's something very wrong. And so your whole persona is undermined everywhere. If you see, you can see physical signs. You can see the withdrawal, the disdain, kind of side by side, parallel. Mention but won't.
Yeah.
But they don't. The subtle, and
Okay, it's kind of freezing. I'm not.
Does that?
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but it's kind of freezing. But I know that when we play it back, it will be okay. Yeah, it will be okay. Maybe I'll just ask one more question, Linda, in case it just stops. You know what technology can be like sometimes.
Yes.
But yeah, one of the things, I mean, I have to say you are in Canada, I am in the UK. So, it's not like we can visit one another. I can come into your office or you can come to mine. But your advice is always so amazing. So this is why I keep this going, because I know that there's some people who will benefit from hearing what it is that you have to say and read your articles as well on the Divorce Magazine. So let's keep going and hopefully it will freeze again. Sure. My question to you, Linda, is because I'm imagining somebody sitting there listening to this and maybe slowly beginning to dawn, this is what's happening to me, right? Or questioning, am I in this situation? Is this what is going on? Or some of them are like, this is exactly this is how I feel. There is emotional abuse in here. What advice would you give them?
If it resonates, I would say talk to a friend or family member that you trust first. Talk it through and just get their encouragement. If they, I know that in my situation, when I finally would, because the other thing is you're embarrassed, because of course it's all your fault. So you don't tell people, you don't say these things. And so you need to get over that hump of feeling embarrassed, because you have no reason whatsoever to be embarrassed, and talk to a friend or talk to family member or someone in your church, if you go to church, that you feel comfortable with, but just open up to them. And that really helped me. It was that it gave me a sense of validation and security, because you really, you feel like there is something so terribly wrong with you that you can't be loved.
You've during the whole interview, you've said that quite a few times, that you feel there's something wrong with you, and I'm just imagining how continuously thinking like that, how far it can take you, how far down it can take you, that by the time you think, actually, it's not me, you might be quite far down.
Oh, absolutely.
I know I said that was my final question before, but I have one last question, Linda. Um,
Yes,
is it possible that emotional abusers are not aware of what they're doing?
very aware.
They are.
At least in my situation,
Okay.
they were very aware, and they're, the other thing is that rarely will you find remorse from the abuser.
Okay.
So that's an acceptance. That's a place you've got to get to. You have to put yourself back together, and it really is that, because your whole sort of psyche feels scattered from being emotionally torn apart.
Wow.
It is as painful as physical pain.
Yeah. Thank you, Linda.
And so, if someone out there, if this resonates, then really you're okay. You talk to somebody, find a path forward that's going to help you, and it's not your fault.
Okay. Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you so much for listening to this interview with Linda Simpson. I mean, like I keep saying, she has got one of the best pieces of advice that you can get, and reading her articles on the Divorce Magazine, because we actually have a column for Linda, which is Letters to Linda. And if you need to speak with her, even if it's just telling her how you feel or where you are, please do email Linda Linda, do you want to tell us your email address?
Yes, it's letters to Linda at thedivorcemagazine.co.uk.
Thank you so much.
And I'd be delighted to have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome.